Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Divya from TSK, and today we are going to have a chit chat with a very close friend of ours. Her name is Anagha. She is a very famous lactation counselor in Bangalore, and she's joining us to share her journey, her stories with us. And I see Anagha here, so let's bring her online. Anagha, I'm sending you a request. Hi.
Hello.
You look so pretty. You're all set for the
Thank
Diwali
you.
night.
I don't know about Diwali, but I definitely wanted to deck up because I couldn't wear the sari when I intended to wear it. So,
Love it,
Abhi,
totally.
what better occasion to do it than wear it for a live with CSK?
Perfect, Anaga. Perfect. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Anaga. I thought, it's the Diwali season is round the corner and everyone is almost, getting all geared up for Diwali. I thought, why not just have a very friendly chat and, enjoy ourselves on this Sunday evening and know about your journey because yours has been an inspirational turn of events for many women, right? You've carved out a beautiful career of a lactation counselor, and you're doing so well in that field, and you're transforming so many lives. So many mothers who are struggling, you are transforming the lives, right? It's a
That's a
commendable job that you
lot.
are
That's a
doing.
lot. Yeah.
And
Okay.
the best part is
So,
you enjoy it.
I do. I do. So I did hear you introducing me, and you said I'm a very famous lactation counselor. I'm not really sure about that though,
Many
but
people know you, Anaga.
okay. Yeah. So I think it all. So lactation specifically for me, it all started when Neela was born in 2016, and I was myself seeking help with respect to
Right.
lactation. So, what really happened was a very good friend of mine from high school. She added me to a group on Facebook, a support group, right? So, I joined and I got all the help I needed at that point in time, and I sort of started picking up. So, it's a peer support group, it wasn't an expert led
Right.
group at all. So I started helping other mothers, and over a period of time, maybe about 2 years later, by then I had joined the team that was running the group, right, as a
Uh-huh.
moderator.
Okay.
So what happened was they rolled out a scholarship for
Okay.
somebody who wanted to pursue lactation professionally. So against all odds, I decided to apply for it anyway. Okay. So I said, okay, देखते हैं क्या होता है. Maybe I'll get it, maybe I'll not get it. Let me just
Hmm.
try because
Hmm.
I really felt very strongly about this. Okay. Now
Right.
the other little bit, this may sound like really funny, is that I have always been interested in medicine and, the human anatomy and all of that. I used to read one of my favorite novels, although it's not exactly medical, is Doctors by Eric Segel. And I used to read a lot of Robin Cook, and maybe when I was 8 or 9, when I was not aware of the reality and what it takes to become a doctor, I aspired to be a doctor, which of course fell flat on its face once I started high school. So I felt I might do well, right? Also because I was already helping so many mothers, so I was like, why not just take it
Right.
forward and try
Right.
out. So it so
Right.
happened that I did not get the scholarship, but a very dear friend of mine won it. She was also another team
Okay.
member. Okay.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
she got it, and then I don't know, maybe just spur of the moment, that same evening the result was announced, I was like, maybe just, I had a talk with Naveen. I was like, why not? I mean, and it's not a very it's not an inexpensive course. Okay, it's quite expensive, and I had no means of income. So I also had to consult with him, because it was him paying for it and all of that. So and he was right from the moment I mentioned it to him. He said, just go for it. If you feel like you want to do it, go for it and do it. Okay, don't worry about the money. So I just went ahead. It was great to have been doing the course in tandem with the friend who won the scholarship. Both of us kind of, we used to push each other, and we were like, we used to kick each other up, in case we were lagging behind when it came to
Nice.
assignments and things like that. So that is pretty much how I did the certification. This was also around the time when Neela was just about getting comfortable falling asleep without nursing. Otherwise, she would always want to breastfeed to sleep. So I still remember, like 4 or 5 days ago, I was seeing one video, on my Google Photos. There's this one video where I'm trying to sit. So I used to study in the late night, right? Because during the day I couldn't. And I'm somebody who, when I'm sitting to do something, I prefer not to have interruptions. Okay, this is super high expectation for a parent of a toddler, but it's just me. I was like, I feel like things will not sink in, or I'll not able to be able to concentrate. And also this added anxiety and underconfidence of, not having been great in a school environment and exam and test and all of that. So there was a lot riding. So I decided that, once Naveen's back home, and then, hand over parental responsibilities to him, and then start. So I recently saw this video where I'm studying. So this 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old comes into my desk, and then she starts opening all the drawers, and then she wants me to go with her. And then I'm telling her, no, wait, I'm studying. And then she tries to come and sit with me between my legs on the chair. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll come, I'll nurse you to sleep. And she actually does a jig from the chair to the room when I'm telling her. So I was like, okay. So, that's pretty much how lactation happened. And once I finished that also, I wasn't really sure how I was going to practice. What really helped was Chetna, who was also my mentor and who also did the live with you for homeschooling. She was extremely helpful, and she was my guide. And, she said, if I'm not available to do any consults, I'll just share them with you, and maybe you can just go and visit them. And that's really how I started doing consultations and home visits. And then, of course, the whole lactation practice at the birth home happened, and I've been with them for almost a year now. No, more than a year. Yeah. So, and the whole pandemic and, so many uncertainties and everything. So basically, it's just about, the reason I got into it is to pay it forward. Because when I was at my most vulnerable, about 5 days after my child was born, somebody helped me. There were so many mothers who helped me, who gave me the confidence. And, I think that that initial foundation sort of set the ball rolling for our breastfeeding journey. So I think that is sort of pretty much how it's worked. And then now, it's just going on, and it's great to be working on, my own terms, and, not really be worried about targets, or, of course, there are certain things that I need to be mindful of, but then for the most part, it's been great so far.
Awesome. So,
and that's how I met you as well. So, yeah.
Yes. Anaka, so tell me, there are so many different kinds of parenting now, right? There's something called as gentle parenting, and of course the normal parenting that we all kind of try to stick to. So what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think, is there a right way of parenting?
Is there a right way of parenting? There is. Okay. So the way I see it is, and it has been like a sea change from how I've seen our parents, brought us up, and the way we've seen other parents and relatives and close family and all of that. I think the biggest difference right now is to realize that our children are also individuals, right?
Yeah.
So the way I see it is, with parenting, the default is to go into a place of control, right? So I want to control what they eat, what they wear, what they, where they go to school. And of course, there are some decisions like schooling and everything which the children are not capable of taking for themselves. But I think lately there is a lot of research, there's a lot of information on the internet, and also there are a lot of support groups and parenting groups that you can be a part of. Where you get a lot of information about what are the various options that are available, and which open your eyes into, it's not just about conventional schooling. There's alternative schooling, there's homeschooling, and there's also a lot of help that you get from people you haven't even met, right? So all of that. At the same time, there's also, from my experience, what I've noticed, I've gotten a lot of help from Facebook groups and internet and all of that. But at the same time, I've also observed a lot of judgment happening. Okay, so is there a right way of parenting? There definitely is. It is one where you respect your child's choice. You see the child as an individual. You don't feel the need to control them more often than not. You parent them from a place of respect, from a place of wanting to protect them. Okay, but at the same time, you also let them explore the world and their surroundings. It's basically. So I have a friend who used to say, anybody who was anxious about, their children hurting themselves when they're doing various antics around the home and everything, she used to say, if it is not something that is a danger to the life and limb, then I let them do it. Okay. And I also saw this happening with my own child, because she is an extremely handsy, extremely physical child. Okay. She wants to, even before she started walking properly, I remember her trying to first hold something and stand, and then trying to reach the next level and the next level, and I'd be like having mini heart attacks. And then I used to tell her so many times, be careful, be careful, be careful, because it comes back to me now. At 4 years, she tells me, if something happens to me, she says, Amma, you have to be careful. And I'm like, okay, there it goes. So it's a lot of letting them be independent while at the same time just holding back, which is so difficult to do as
very
parents.
Difficult to do.
It is so difficult. You want to protect them, you want to make sure nothing happens to them, but at the same time, you don't want them to hold back against their instincts, right? So take for example swimming. Okay, I don't know how to swim, and I'm honestly petrified of water bodies. So unless if it is something that is above the knee, I'll be like, okay, you know what, bahut ho gaya, I'm going to sit in one corner, you people go. But for me, what worked is that luckily her father, Naveen, knows how to swim. And he is a bit of, it's like, arey kuch nahi hoga type. So he takes her into the water. So I'm like happy to let her go, because I know that there is one person who will be there for her if anything is supposed to happen. Yeah. So I think that way, it's been a little, it's not been a little, it's still an ongoing, roller coaster ride, parenting itself. But mostly what I have learned is that, see, everybody, depending on the situation, we tend to lose our temper. And it's not just with our kids. I tend to lose my temper and lose it with even my husband and anybody for that matter. So I think with respect to kids, at least they're that much more vulnerable to your emotions, because you are their safe space, right? Yeah. So, Naveen used to mostly go to work and come back in the evening. So I was the care provider for her, throughout the day. So she used to depend on me a lot. So these are some of the observations and things that I learned from various support groups and various parenting books that I've read, which are not many, because I'm not a big fan of such books. You give me fiction and I'll sit and read through them for like 3 times a day. But then, so I mean, parenting makes you do things that you've never done before. So some things that I've learned is that, sit down and analyze. It's not the child, it's you. Because when children are behaving a certain way, more often than not, it is age appropriate, right? It's because they are not able to get a hold of their emotions.
Right.
It's because they are not able to, it's too overwhelming for them, even right from birth. If they are constantly crying, they're doing that for a reason. Okay. So I think that way I learned to sort of take a pause. If I felt like I was going to have a breakdown or I was going to lose it, I learned to take a step back.
Right.
So, for example, I joined parenting groups and weaning groups and everything like there was no tomorrow when, Neela, in the first few months. So there is this one process of weaning a baby called baby-led weaning, right? It looked so interesting, and the philosophy behind it is so beautiful. It is to allow your child to connect with the food that they're eating, and
let them feed themselves.
Correct, yeah. And also, it's not just about feeding themselves. It's not just a physical act of putting food in their mouth by themselves, but it's also about exploring the textures. It's also about exploring the taste and
getting familiar with food.
Correct. Yeah, making their own choices and discovering food for themselves and all of that. And your job as a parent is just to offer whatever you've made and just sit back and let them.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, it sounded so interesting to me, and it was so, it was very attractive for me as a parent. I was like, okay, maybe I can let my child, because eating and food is such a huge part of the parenting journey. You're constantly thinking about, have they eaten enough? Have they gotten all that nutrition? It's like you kind of become a mini, diet chart and all of that. So then I said, okay. But along with that, the flip side came the mess. Okay. And I am somebody who's extremely, extremely, extremely averse to tidying up and cleaning up. Okay. I will avoid it till the nth moment. Until it has come like up till here, I'll not. I'll be like, Arey, chalega. It's okay. I don't want to clean. You will not find me holding a cloth and dusting the house unless I absolutely feel like, okay, there is like 1 inch of dust there, I need to go and clean. I'm that kind of person. At the same time, I also want to preserve as much cleanliness as is there in the house. Okay, I'm like, jitna saaf hai, utna saaf rehne do. That is the kind of person that I am. So I tried out baby-led weaning with my child. What happened? Food near the couch, food near her toys, food on the carpet, food everywhere. And I started realizing that when this was happening, I was doing just the opposite of what baby-led weaning recommends. Right? They recommend that, let the baby make a mess. It's okay. That is how they are exploring. When they fling food around, they're trying to figure out what distance it can go. There's a lot of other things besides just eating that happens. They're exploring different textures, so they'll match it. It's like it would be in her hair, in her clothes. And then I said, okay. I figured out that this was not working out for us. I said, no, this is not happening because it is. So later on, what started happening was she was a little hesitant. She was like, if I spill something, then my mother is going to tell me not to spill. Right? So, and it was just, contradictory to what was supposed to happen because I was not able to take it. So then I decided this is not for us. And later on, at around 3.5 years old, she's now about 4 years and 3 months. So she started telling me, no, Amma, you feed me because I will spill if you give me to eat. I did that to her. Right? And that should not have happened because, she should have been like, it's okay. I should have been a little more understanding. So then we started again. Then what I started doing is that I started distancing myself. I was like, okay, if I give her food to eat, then I'm not going to sit there and watch her like a hawk. I'm going to take myself out of the equation. I'm going to sit at a distance and make sure that she eats and, she's not choking or gagging or anything of that sort. But then I'm not going to sit and watch each and every grain that is falling out of the plate into other places. Right? Because that was my trigger. So again, the reason I gave this example is that she was being age appropriate. She doesn't have the hand coordination to gather it and then put it into her mouth and then push it with her thumb and all of that. So it's not her, it was me. It was my baggage that came with me, saying I did not want to tidy up, I did not want the extra work, all of this, and it was coming out on her. I was projecting it onto her.
Yeah.
So it's mostly, in my opinion, parenting is mostly a lot of work upon yourself. You work on yourself while also trying to not to project your insecurities, your fears, and all of these things onto the child, because the child comes with their own set of wiring, and they come with their own instincts and with their own characters and everything. So you do not want to, as much as possible, try to take that away from them, right? So now, despite the fact that I'm scared of getting into the water, she knows that Amma is scared, but she also knows that she can go. She is happy enough to go into the water. She's not scared of it, because she knows that Appa is going to be there to help.
Yeah.
And if it is a kids pool, I shamelessly jump into the kids pool with her and I'm there. So if it is only the deep end and everything, then I'm like, no, you know what, you people go. I'm not going there. So I think it's also a lot of discovery every day when you take the time to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So that is
I think you nicely put it that, the projection, our projection, our insecurities going on to the child, our fears, getting translated. That's something every parent should kind of work on. And then I think it's pretty much okay.
It's mostly discovery. The journey is one of many discoveries, right? So you never know what you might discover about yourself.
Yeah.
Not just the child, but you may figure out, so there are so many things. I discovered that as a teenager, I was excellent with babies. I used to love spending time with babies. I used to help our neighbors take care of their kids and everything. But I now find that I am not that keen on spending time with my own child. I find that I am not able to sit and actually play with her for even like half an hour.
Yeah.
Whether it is puzzles or whether it is bricks or blocks or whatever it is, I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. So it was kind of came as a bit of a shock to me. I'm like, I was somebody who used to love spending time with children. So what happened now, So I guess, and then you start working on it, and then you're like, you find ways. So you either equip your children to, find play by themselves, or you sort of, get into it with them. So I guess, that's sort of, it's a journey of discovery.
Yeah, very nicely put, Anaga. Also, tell me something. I know a bit about, the kind of education that the journey that you took and how it has developed you. Why don't you share that part with us and what, people could learn from those insights? I think that's quite valuable.
Okay, so I had to change a lot of schools for various reasons throughout my schooling, right? And also for some reason, I don't know if it's just the way I'm wired or the way things worked out with changing schools and having to changing syllabuses and all of that. I was terrible with math, okay, but I was excellent with languages. So English and Hindi and Kannada and all of that, languages were like, I used to love them. And the other thing which was at par with my love for languages was biology. Okay, so I used to love this. At the same time, come physics or mathematics, I used to be like, okay, So this is what happened. And it was so bad that when I went to high school, I still remember this one instance when I think I was in the 9th grade or 10th grade. I think it was 10th grade. So we had these quarterly tests that used to happen, and we had 2 papers for mathematics. One was arithmetic and algebra, and the other one was for geometry. Geometry, I think, was for 10 marks or something. I don't remember. And I was the only person in the class who got a 0 out of 10. Okay, and this used to happen when the teacher used to come and distribute test papers in the class, right? After correcting them, and then she used to announce the marks and give it. Okay. Now this teacher of ours was very sweet. She would not do it to, embarrass the child or So that was not her. It was just a process, and she used to do it. I went and she told me, you've got a 0 out of 10, and she asked me to sit in the first bench. She said, so why don't you just sit there before I finish distributing the papers to everybody? So I was like, okay. And I remember I sat there and I started crying. I was like, oh God, what's happening to me? And I just felt so horrible. I went red in the face and there were like rivers tumbling out of my eyes. And then she finished distributing the papers. She took a break and she took me out of the class because she did not want to talk to me in front of everybody in the class. By then, everyone was like, oh my God, why is she crying? And, she's got a 0 and everything. They were very nice. I had like great friends in high school. Yeah. But, that whole thing about, okay, what's happening? Why is she? So she took me out of the class and she said, what exactly is the problem? What's happening with you? Tell me why you're not able to follow anything. She came from a space of empathy. She actually wanted to know why I was not able to focus. Yeah. She did not come from a space of, okay, you're being careless, you're being lazy, you're being whatever, you're not focusing on your studies. That was not the space. And this was also around the time when I was, I was in my early teens and I was going through a few things. I was living in a hostel. So I was like, okay, I was trying to adapt this newfound independence of being by myself in the hostel and also being away from family, the whole trauma and plus the pain and pleasure of it. So, she took me outside and she said, okay, what I'm going to do now is after school, every day for 1 hour. This was in 10th grade, I remember, because board exam. So she told me, she said, after school for 1 hour, I am going to sit and I'm going to coach you in mathematics. She also told me that I know that you can do it. You are bright enough to grasp it. So I'm going to go a little fast. But I'm going to teach you in the speed that I know you will be able to manage. So she actually spent those 1 hour, the last 3 or 4 months of 10th grade. And I was somebody who thought I'm going to flunk 10th. I was like, okay, this math is going to take me to the grave, And then I did not do a great job in the final exam, but the thing is that I passed. And it was because of this teacher that it happened. Right? Now, knowing that, what would somebody sensible do? Take up a stream in 11th and 12th that is not related to science and mathematics. But no, I was this daredevil who wanted to become a doctor. So I took up science for 11th and 12th, which was physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology. Right? So, what was I thinking? So, I could have probably taken up arts or I could have taken up, commerce again, mathematics. But anyway, so this is what I did. And then I ended up passing 11th by the skin of my teeth. Okay, I don't know how I passed, but I passed. Also, these two big dragons and dinosaurs called trigonometry and calculus, or maybe they are the same thing. I don't know. Okay, that's how bad I am. Then comes 12th.
Anaga.
Yeah. So, then comes 12th. Okay. 12th, and I was Pakka 12th. So, exam also I attempted. I was pretty sure I will fail, and then I failed. Okay.
Oh.
I had the option of switching over to art for my 12th also, but I did not do it. I am like, no, I will somehow get by. Overconfidence. So then I thought, okay, I failed. And then what I did, I decided this is not for me. I said, from like 5th, 6th standard, I've been traumatized by this whole mathematics. And there was some amount of bullying also in school, which happened because I used to change schools. I was the new girl. I had short hair and, people used to bully me. There were instances where my parents wouldn't attend, because of various reasons. Not that they didn't want to, but they genuinely could not. So this whole thing that happened, and I was like, okay, ab bas ho gaya. It's like I need to figure something out. And around the same time, I decided to start working.
Okay.
So I this was around the time when business process outsourcing, BPOs were huge, right? So this was in what, 2002, 2003. 2003 is when it was.
Right.
So I started looking out for a job. Again, full confidence. I'm not even 18. I'm a few months away from being 18, from being, companies being able to legally hire me. So I was like, okay, but then I was like, "Fir bhi, let me try." Then December 2003 is, just a few months after I turned 18. Again, I somehow got really lucky. I was rejected because they thought I was not a very stable candidate. They thought I'll try for my 12th exams again. Little did they know that I had no interest and how strong my disinterest was. So they were like, no, maybe we don't want you to leave after a few months. And then finally, one fine day, the HR called me and she was like, listen, there's just one final opening. If you're still interested, we'll take you. I was like, I am coming right now to take the offer letter. Okay. So I went. And I started as a customer service representative for a British process, right? So this is where I realized that you need to recognize your strengths. My strength was language, okay? And this was a process where you had to sort of learn the accent, and because they needed you to speak with the accent, if not with a British accent, at least with a very neutral accent. So I said, okay, fine. I joined. And then, after a year, we heard that the process that we just joined was going to shut down.
Oh.
So then I was like, okay, ab kya hoga? Now what? And then luckily, we moved to another one. We were selected. And that is where I found, like, I am so thankful, even though this was about 15 years ago, I am totally, I think that was where pretty much it kind of catapulted my confidence. I joined another process for a very well-known logistics company in the UK. And I met like a brilliant team over there, even right from the head of the program, who was an excellent manager. And I met some of my best friends there who are still like, we are best friends till date. So that from then on, from being a customer service representative, I moved on to learning and development. And who would have thought that this will happen, right? So I started training, people in communications and soft skills and all of that. And I worked there for about 5 years. And then I had to quit because we moved to Delhi after I got married and everything. So it kind of gave me the confidence that, academics is not everything. It's very important, absolutely very important. And it will open a lot of avenues for you, right? But just in case you are not able to get through also, there are options, there are choices, right? It's not just that graduation ka certificate hai, so it would have made my life so much easier. I will concede to that. But at the same time, it's also not, you may not be earning in lakhs, but you will survive.
Right.
That is what my observation has been. And that is also one reason why I did not pursue lactation earlier, because I thought there were prerequisites to doing any course. I thought, maybe they will ask for 12th minimum at least. But then I realized through, various friends and various acquaintances, they said, no, there's nothing of this sort. If you're able to, then you can just go ahead. And also being on the support group, I knew half the things already. So they were like, you will just sail through, you don't have to worry about it. So I think I got a lot of confidence push from this group of women whom I was, working with on the Facebook group. Because they all knew my story. They all knew that I came with a set of insecurities. I came with a fear of failure because I have failed in the past. And until about 10 years from the time I quit my job, I was not working. So I was like, okay, what if I fail in this as well? And there was a lot riding on it, because my husband was investing a lot of his money on it and everything. And, it's a huge responsibility when you're not contributing financially to the family. So, so I'm just glad that it happened. And so.
Very nice. I think it's very inspiring to Anagha, because it takes courage. It takes, I think, steps to get to where you are, and certain decisions that you took it by your sleeve, and you didn't give up. I think that's what counts. And you've carved out a good space for yourself. And I know that you enjoy your work and you are happy in this space. So it's all worth it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, this is very difficult, again, from my experience, but
Yeah.
it is okay to do mistakes,
Yes.
right? And you learn from your mistakes.
Right.
I think one of my biggest blessings when I was growing up from my early teens is that I stayed in a hostel and I grew up independently, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was allowed to make those mistakes,
Right.
and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Right. Right.
So, for example, my mother trusted in me enough to know that, okay, even if you do it, go ahead and do it. If you want to do science, it may not be the best option for you, but if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it.
Right. Right.
Right? So, even in terms of choosing the man I was going to spend my life with,
Right.
so I met Naveen and I met on Orkut, and it could have gone.
Okay.
And it's not that, yeah,
Interesting.
so, so it's not like he was the first person I had a relationship with either, right? But also to trust me enough to know that, okay, you know what, you're not going to, if no big mistakes in life and everything. And
Right.
also to, when I did talk about Naveen and everything, in fact, my mom was far more impressed with Naveen than I was, even before I was. So, all of these things, I think the kind of trust she had in her children that, we wouldn't mess up our lives, really, it could have gone either way, but I think
Yes.
it sort of it all worked out in the end.
Right.
I suppose.
Right.
And that is how I feel. I know that trusting your children, your child is very important, while also at the same time being there in the background to guide
Yeah.
her when she asks for help.
Yes.
Right? So I think it's very important to allow them to make mistakes so that they learn from them, and they also know that things will go wrong.
Right.
But how do we learn from it and come out of it? Could be something as simple as falling down when she's riding her balance bike. She kind of had to learn that if I don't focus or if I don't put my foot down, I am going to fall down. So, I would have been like, I want to hold you, but then she will not learn. So, yeah, I guess it's bittersweet, but the rewards are great.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what counts.
Yeah.
Anika, also tell me how your experience has been as a lactation consultant. I know there are, I call it soul work, anything to do with babies. I think it's very, very soul enriching. So how do you, how has your experience been, and are there any things that you look forward to in learning or, taking a next step in this field?
So, if there's one thing that I've kind of realized right from even before I did the certification and became a lactation counselor is that, it's so much more than just breastfeeding.
Yes.
Right? It is so much more than that.
Right.
So many times when I'm talking to parents, when I'm talking to mothers, breastfeeding is just one aspect of it, but then the whole psychological aspect of it is just as important as milk supply. Sometimes it's just about, so that is something I've kind of noticed, and through my consultations and meeting mothers and families, who need help with lactation, I've also realized that something as simple as, just one sentence or two sentences saying, you can do this, you've done this, you've birthed the baby after bearing the baby for 9 months, or lesser, however long, but you made the baby in your uterus and then you birthed the baby, and breastfeeding is just a natural progression and you can do this.
Yes.
Right? It's just the initial few days that are very difficult because
it's all very new.
More often than not. Yeah, and also more often than not, they don't have a lot of information about how breastfeeding works. Right? It's about telling them that it's okay not to have milk flowing from your breast the first 3 days, because that is not how it is supposed to be. Right? Colostrum is also milk. This is one of the biggest learnings for me when I was, on the peer support group, and just giving them that little burst of confidence can do wonders. And there are also cases where especially now, lately, because of COVID, there are cesareans happening helter-skelter, not that they weren't
Oh.
earlier. But even now, so many mothers who could have birthed vaginally, who didn't have any comorbidities, no diabetes, no BP, no nothing of that sort, are being pushed into going for a cesarean. And then there's this whole progression of that, it just snowballs into a lot of things and isolation. So some families where the mother and baby are separated because the mother is suspected of COVID, which is not necessary, right? So all of these things. But the biggest learning for me by far is that one, breastfeeding, lactation counseling is not just about breastfeeding. More often than not, it is also about counseling the mother about her emotions, telling her it is normal for her to feel the way she's feeling, and just telling her that she is capable and she has the choice to decide one way or the other, right? So basically, don't judge somebody, irrespective of whether they choose to breastfeed or not. Because you are never in their shoes completely. So you really don't know what they're going through. All you can do is just support them the best you can. And if they do choose not to breastfeed after a while or maybe right from the beginning, then that's okay. Because they know they are taking an informed choice. That's all your job is. Just ensure that they are capable of making an informed choice. And also breastfeeding is not just putting the baby to the breast. Pumping and offering express milk is also breastfeeding. Right? For a lot of babies, that is what the option is. So it's every drop counts is, I think, what it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
right now, so you also asked me about. Oh, sorry, I'm just.
Go ahead. Yeah. No. Go ahead. I'm thoroughly enjoying listening to you.
You also asked me about what next. So
yes, what next? Or is there something you're planning more to it?
At this point, I really would like to. If the lactation goes on, I'm loving my work as a lactation counselor, but I also have been toying with the idea of getting into childbirth, either as a childbirth educator or consider becoming a doula or something of that sort. Again, this will come a lot later, but then those thoughts are definitely happening in my head.
Awesome.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. I don't know.
Benefit of the people who are listening to us, you may want to explain what a doula and a childbirth educator is.
Okay, now I may not do a bang up job of that. So, very, very briefly, because I am neither a childbirth educator nor a doula to explain very clearly yet. A childbirth educator is somebody who basically educates expecting parents and also parents who are planning to conceive about what exactly happens during pregnancy and what can you do to make sure that so basically empower them with the information that they need and also get rid of that whole uncertainty as much as possible when it comes to birth and pregnancy, right? So that they know that they have a say in the choices that they make or that is made for them, right? So that is basically what childbirth education I feel is, which is, I'm sure, a very, very vague idea.
No, it's absolutely, yes, that's what a childbirth educator does. And who's a doula?
And a doula is somebody, so there are, I think there are different types of doulas. There is a labor doula, there is a postpartum doula. So a doula is somebody who supports the mother, who is basically like a support system for the mother when she's in labor, for the person who's in labor. I really wouldn't want to say it's just the mother.
Right.
So, and also postpartum doula is someone who sort of helps the family during the early days.
Great, Anagha. Do pursue it, and it will be so lovely to see you in these roles too, because you will be amazing in these roles. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. It means so much. that you
So
say that.
Anaga, I had a amazing chit chat, and it's always so great to catch up with you and to know you even better today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Uh, from the team Theascape, I would like to thank you for joining us and taking time out also to come all dressed up and decked up in Theascape today. Do you have any message for us? Anything that you would want us to take note of? Any message that you would like to share with the team behind Theascape?
I think, see, I love the way you all are being so passionate and, so driven about the whole brand, and also at the same time, these women empowerment series are, I think, a great way to also, sort of bring into light the various
Yes.
aspects and all of that. So, the one thing that I would really like to appreciate about Theascape, and of course your sarees and all the things that you're on your website and you're selling, is that the price factor. I am so happy about.
I know.
I'm like, they're
We
so
are very cautious
amazing,
about
and
that.
yeah. I think it's making sarees and clothing affordable and at this quality is something that you do not find everywhere. And I
Yeah.
am somebody who has like an attic full of sarees that are unused. So I say this from experience. I think just keep on doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the very best. And you have a
Thank you
very loyal
so much,
customer in
Anvi.
me. And I've
Thank
already
you.
given you feedback. So
Yes, yes, yes. That I have taken very seriously, and I'm working on
yeah.
that. You may see certain changes there, so I'll work on that. Also, Anaga, I always felt that a sari over any other dress is always elegant, and if you get it in the same price, voila,
Yeah.
elegance along with the same price tag. So yeah, we're
So
very cautious
again,
of that.
a little bit over here maybe is that I was somebody who grew up with just t-shirts and denims throughout my 20s and
Same
even my teens
here.
for that matter. Yeah. So I was like, there were people who would go saucer-eyed if they see me wearing a salwar kameez in college. That is how it was. And now I've come down to somebody who's like, my move to Delhi was the catalyst. I was like, boss, I cannot wear jeans in this heat. Are you like kidding me? So that is when this whole love for cotton, sarwar, kameez and sari started.
Right.
And it's just built up from there. And now I'm
Awesome.
someone who would love to wear a sari at any opportunity that I have. So also it's just sort of, the more you wear, the more comfortable you get wearing it.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much, and we will again have you back on another topic, something to do with maybe, because I just thought, why not catch up, but we'll think about something more with you. And thank you again, and love to Neela, and
Thank
regards
you.
to Naveen. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you very soon. As soon as the
Yes,
pandemic
we
is,
should.
yeah, we should catch up.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Anaga.
you so much
Take
for having
care.
me, Divya, and all the best,
Absolutely.
Escape.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.